25 forgotten meals from the 1950s that brought families together. In the 1950s, dinner was not simply the act of eating. It was a gentle ceremony that nourished the soul as much as the body. The clink of silverware against china mingled with the soft hum of a kitchen radio. Children leaned in eagerly, waiting to share stories of their day, while the scent of onions and butter rose from the stove and drifted through every room. The air itself seemed to promise comfort. When families gathered around the table, the noise of the outside world faded into silence. Time slowed into laughter, into the careful passing of bread, into the quiet rhythm of love made visible in small gestures. These suppers became rituals remembered long after the plates were cleared, woven together with the flavors of meatloaf, casseroles, stews, and pies. Step back into those kitchens, warm with light and the polished shine of linoleum floors. Sit again at tables where the food was modest, yet filled with meaning. These are 25 forgotten meals of the 1950s, dishes that bound families together and turned the ordinary into something timeless. Meatloaf. The oven opened, releasing a wave of warmth that carried with it the unmistakable scent of seasoned beef and sweet red ketchup. A meatloaf, glossy and fragrant, waited inside, filling the home with anticipation. Children leaned forward, forks in hand, while mothers smoothed napkins and fathers adjusted their chairs as if preparing for something more than a meal. A slice was served, landing softly on a plate beside a mound of mashed potatoes where butter melted into golden pools. The first bite, meatloaf and potato together, was tender and familiar. It tasted of safety, of home, of the reassurance that the day had ended and the family was whole again. In those years, meatloaf was never only food. It was steadiness in uncertain times, a way to stretch a dollar without losing the feeling of abundance. Made from ground beef, breadcrumbs, and eggs, it carried thrift and care in equal measure. Even now, to prepare meatloaf is to invite back the memory of evenings when the dinner table was the heart of the household. Salisbury steak with gravy. The skillet came alive with a hiss as patties of seasoned beef met the hot surface. The aroma of onions rising in butter drifted through the kitchen, wrapping itself around the anticipation of dinner. Soon, a rich brown gravy thickened in the pan, ladled generously over the steaks until they gleamed with comfort. At the table, plates were filled with Salisbury steak, alongside mashed potatoes and green beans, steam curling upward as if inviting everyone closer. The first bite combined the hearty savor of beef with the velvety smoothness of gravy, a taste that lingered long enough to make conversation pause for a moment. Children smiled, mothers watched with quiet satisfaction, and fathers leaned back knowing the meal was both filling and kind. In the 1950s, Salisbury steak was more than an affordable substitute for finer cuts. It was dignity served in a skillet, a dish that proved even ground beef could be transformed into something worthy of pride. It carried the assurance that thrift could be beautiful, that care could be tasted in every mouthful. To prepare it now is to bring back the sound of a skillet hissing, the sight of gravy poured in slow ribbons, and the memory of evenings when nourishment meant more than plenty. Beef stew. A heavy pot simmered quietly on the stove, its lid rattling every so often as steam escaped in gentle sighs. Inside, cubes of beef softened slowly, mingling with carrots, potatoes, and onions until their flavors blended into one. The scent of thyme and bay leaf filled the house, clinging to coats and curtains as if determined to stay. Children pressed their noses to the edge of the pot, eager for the first bowl. When ladled out, the stew was thick and hearty, the broth rich enough to coat the spoon, the vegetables tender yet full of sweetness. Bread was torn into pieces to soak up what remained, every crumb treasured as though nothing should be wasted. In the 1950s, beef stew was more than a meal. It was patience turned into nourishment, a slow ritual that gave warmth to cold evenings. Families saw in its steam the comfort of time well spent, the reminder that care could be tasted. To cook beef stew today is to call back the sound of a kitchen window fogging over and the memory of laughter rising from a table gathered close. Pork chops with applesauce. The skillet crackled as pork chops turned golden, their edges crisping in the heat. The aroma was deep and savory, filling the room with promise. Then came the surprise, a bowl of applesauce placed gently on the table, cool and sweet, touched with cinnamon. The contrast of flavors was striking, the richness of meat softened by the bright tang of fruit. Plates were passed around, each holding the pairing that had become a favorite across countless homes. A bite of pork followed by a spoonful of applesauce created harmony that felt both playful and comforting. Children found joy in the sweetness. Adults found satisfaction in the balance. For families of the 1950s, pork chops with applesauce were not only practical, but memorable. Pork was affordable and apples abundant, yet together they became something more than thrift. They became a sign of thoughtfulness, of a cook who knew that food could be both hearty and delightful. To serve this dish today is to summon back evenings lit by warm lamps, where the simple act of combining flavors felt like a celebration. Tuna casserole. The oven door opened to reveal a dish bubbling with anticipation. Noodles curled beneath a golden crust, while the creamy blend of tuna and mushroom soup filled the kitchen with a scent both rich and reassuring. Steam rose in lazy spirals, carrying with it the memory of evenings when dinner was more than sustenance. It was relief after a long day. Children leaned close as the casserole was served, the top breaking gently under the spoon, revealing layers soft and comforting. Peas dotted the mixture like little gems, adding color and sweetness. Each bite was creamy and familiar, the kind of flavor that made conversation easy and laughter linger. In the 1950s, tuna casserole stood as a symbol of resourcefulness. With canned tuna, a few noodles, and a can of soup, families could create abundance without extravagance. To taste it today is to recall the shine of Pyrex dishes on a polished table and the feeling of plenty born from simplicity. Creamed tuna on toast. A slice of toast, crisp and golden, waited on the plate. Over it came a generous ladle of creamy tuna sauce, speckled with peas and touched with the gentle heat of pepper. The bread crackled beneath the sauce, yielding as the richness settled into every corner. It was quick, it was practical, yet it carried a weight of comfort that stretched far beyond its simplicity. On busy nights, this was the meal that saved the household, filling plates in minutes and filling hearts with warmth. Children often asked for a second slice, delighted by the pairing of crunch and cream. In the kitchens of the 1950s, creamed tuna on toast was the quiet hero. It showed that even the most ordinary ingredients could be transformed into a meal that felt complete. To make it again now is to return to those evenings when the smell of buttered toast and the softness of sauce promised that all was well. Shepherd's pie. The casserole dish emerged with a crust of mashed potatoes, browned lightly at the edges. Beneath that layer lay a savory mixture of beef, onions, carrots, and peas, their flavors mingling into one warm embrace. A spoon broke through the golden top, releasing steam that carried the scent of home. Served on plates, the pie revealed itself in layers. The creamy potatoes balanced the richness of meat. The vegetables brought sweetness and texture. It was a dish that filled both stomach and spirit, leaving behind the satisfaction of something whole and hearty. For families in the 1950s, shepherd's pie was a lesson in resourcefulness. Leftover potatoes and simple vegetables were reborn as comfort, reminding everyone that nothing was wasted and everything could be made new. To eat it now is to taste the quiet wisdom of those kitchens where thrift was turned into love. Soup and grilled cheese. Rain tapped against the windows as tomato soup simmered gently on the stove. Its aroma was sharp yet soothing, carrying the warmth of ripened tomatoes made smooth with cream. Nearby, slices of bread hissed in butter as they crisped to golden, embracing cheese that melted into molten pools. The sandwich, cut diagonally, revealed strings of cheese stretching between bites. When dipped into the soup, the combination was both comforting and indulgent. The crunch of toast, the softness of cheese, and the warmth of soup created a harmony that wrapped around the family like a blanket. In the 1950s, this pairing was more than convenience. It was a promise that even the simplest meals could bring joy. Mothers cherished it for its ease, children for its taste, fathers for its familiarity. To recreate it now is to return to rainy nights when kitchens glowed softly and the simplest food tasted like pure comfort. Waffle breakfast. The morning began with the hiss of batter poured onto the hot iron. The lid closed, and soon the scent of sweet dough baking filled the air, drifting down hallways and calling children from their rooms. When the iron opened, golden waffles emerged, crisp on the edges and soft at the center, like squares of sunshine laid upon the plate. Families gathered slowly, each person dressing their waffles in their own way. Syrup dripped in amber rivers, butter melted into warm pools, sometimes fruit or cream made the meal feel like a celebration. The table filled with laughter that rose as lightly as the steam. In the 1950s, waffles were more than breakfast. They were the gentle luxury of a weekend morning, a small feast that marked time as special. To make them now is to hear once again the sound of forks tapping against china, and to feel the slow joy of a family unhurried. Hot dogs with sauerkraut. On weeknights and summer evenings, the grill hissed with the sound of hot dogs browning, their skins splitting just slightly as smoke curled upward. Beside them, sauerkraut waited, sharp and tangy, its scent mingling with the savory aroma of the meat. Served in soft buns, the pairing was both simple and bold. The richness of the hot dog met the bright crunch of sauerkraut, creating a balance that delighted the tongue. Children grinned with mustard on their lips, while adults found comfort in the familiarity of it all. In the 1950s, hot dogs with sauerkraut were a symbol of ease and community. They appeared at backyard cookouts, quick weeknight suppers, and ball games alike. To eat them again is to taste the hum of summer evenings when neighbors gathered and life felt uncomplicated. Potato salad. A bowl of potato salad rested on the picnic table, cool and creamy beneath its coating of mayonnaise and mustard. Chunks of potato glistened in the sunlight, flecked with celery, pickles, and a dusting of paprika. The first spoonful was tangy, soft, and refreshing, a taste that lingered with the brightness of summer. It was passed from hand to hand at barbecues and gatherings, served alongside fried chicken, burgers, and laughter. Its flavor was steady and reliable, the kind of dish that held no surprises but never disappointed. For families of the 1950s, potato salad was more than a side dish. It was a companion to memories of warm afternoons, of gingham tablecloths fluttering in the breeze, of voices mingling under the open sky. To taste it now is to return to those days when every bite carried the sound of joy. Deviled eggs. On platters at church suppers and holiday tables, deviled eggs appeared like little treasures. Their whites were smooth and delicate, their yolks whipped with mustard and mayonnaise, until creamy, then crowned with a dusting of paprika that glowed red against the pale surface. They were small enough to vanish in a single bite, yet carried flavor that felt generous. Guests reached for them quickly, and within minutes the platter was bare. They brought elegance to the table without effort, making even simple gatherings feel festive. In the 1950s, deviled eggs were the pride of hostesses. They were prepared ahead, served with ease, and always admired. To recreate them today is to recall the hum of conversation in crowded rooms, the clink of glasses, and the joy of food that was as beautiful as it was beloved. Spaghetti and meatballs. A large pot of tomato sauce simmered for hours, its surface bubbling gently, filling the home with the scent of garlic, basil, and oregano. Meatballs, browned in the pan, were lowered into the sauce, where they softened slowly, releasing their richness into the Red Sea. When the pasta was twirled onto plates and crowned with sauce and meatballs, the table grew lively. Forks clinked, laughter carried over the rising steam, and even silence was filled with comfort. Each bite was hearty and abundant, a celebration in its own right. In the 1950s, spaghetti and meatballs were more than a dish. They were proof of how immigrant traditions had found a place in American homes. To make them again now is to remember Sundays when the world seemed to pause, letting the family gather over plates that never seemed to empty. Baked ziti. From the oven came a casserole of baked ziti, bubbling with marinara and crowned with melted mozzarella and parmesan. The scent of oregano clung to the kitchen air, and when a spoon broke into the dish, long strings of cheese stretched across plates, making both children and adults smile. Every scoop was warm and filling, noodles wrapped in sauce, comfort layered with flavor. It was a dish meant to serve many, making gatherings feel abundant and easy. Friends, neighbors, and cousins alike could be fed with one pan of ziti, and no one ever left hungry. For families of the 1950s, baked ziti was generosity baked into a dish. It was a reminder that food could be festive without being costly. To taste it today is to feel the warmth of crowded tables where conversation overlapped and no one noticed the passing of time. Beef stroganoff. In a skillet, strips of beef browned with onions and mushrooms before being bathed in a sauce of sour cream and broth. The aroma was rich, earthy, and faintly tangy, filling the room with a sense of indulgence. Served over egg noodles, the dish gleamed softly, each bite tender and soothing. Families found stroganoff to be both elegant and accessible. It borrowed from European tradition, yet fit neatly into American kitchens, made with ingredients found in every store. It was a dish that gave the weeknight dinner a touch of celebration without asking for extravagance. In the 1950s, beef stroganoff was a taste of something worldly, a reminder that flavors traveled across oceans to arrive on the family table. To cook it now is to hear again the soft clatter of forks, to see the glow of lamps on polished plates, and to feel the richness of a meal that once made ordinary evenings shine brighter. Clam chowder. The pot simmered slowly, its creamy broth thick with potatoes, onions, and tender clams. Steam curled upward, fogging the window and filling the kitchen with the scent of the sea mingled with butter. A ladle poured the chowder into bowls, where it was crowned with crackers that softened in the warmth. Each spoonful was rich and comforting, the brine of the clams balanced by the sweetness of vegetables and the smoothness of cream. Families ate in silence at first, savoring the comfort that lingered long after the bowl was empty. In the 1950s, clam chowder was both humble and indulgent. Canned clams made it accessible, yet it still felt like a luxury brought into the home. To taste it today is to remember evenings when kitchens glowed softly, and food offered not just nourishment but a sense of quiet abundance. Shrimp scampi. Butter melted in the skillet, garlic sizzling until its fragrance filled the room. Shrimp turned pink in the heat, kissed with lemon juice and parsley that brightened the dish. The sauce gleamed golden, ready to be caught with pasta or bread. Families felt a touch of elegance when shrimp scampi appeared. It was simple, yet it tasted festive, a reminder that the everyday could hold something special. The balance of richness and brightness brought smiles to the table, lifting spirits in its simplicity. In the 1950s, shrimp scampi was a dish of quiet sophistication. It carried the promise of something finer without demanding extravagance. To make it again now is to bring back the memory of laughter mixed with the scent of garlic, and the feeling that the home itself had turned into a small restaurant. Stuffed bell peppers. Bright green, red, and yellow peppers stood in neat rows, filled with a mixture of ground beef, rice, and herbs. As they baked, their skins softened, and their scent filled the house with warmth. Melted cheese pooled on top, creating a crust that made every bite indulgent. Served whole, the peppers were both food and decoration. Their colors brightened the table. Their filling brought comfort and satisfaction. Each pepper was a complete meal, carefully crafted and lovingly served. For families of the 1950s, stuffed peppers were more than nourishment. They were proof of care and creativity, turning simple ingredients into something festive. To serve them again is to recall evenings when the table itself seemed to glow with color and love. Liver and onions. The skillet warmed with butter, and onions slowly caramelized to golden sweetness. Slices of liver cooked beside them, rich and earthy, their scent filling the air. The two met together on the plate, the sweetness of the onions softening the strength of the liver. It was a dish of nourishment, prized for its iron and strength, trusted by mothers who cared for growing children. Served with mashed potatoes and green beans, it made a plate that was as steady as it was filling. In the 1950s, liver and onions were more than a preference. They were a necessity. They spoke of health, thrift, and responsibility. To eat it now is to taste not only flavor but the memory of care, the reminder that food was chosen as much for its strength as for its comfort. Corned beef hash. The skillet hissed as diced potatoes browned to a golden crisp, their edges snapping gently with each stir. Chopped corned beef joined the pan, its salty aroma mingling with the sweetness of onions. The mixture sizzled together until every bite promised both crunch and tenderness. Served with eggs, it became a meal for any hour of the day, hearty enough for breakfast and satisfying enough for supper. Families gathered around the table with plates that felt humble yet complete. In the 1950s, corned beef hash was more than thrift. It was a reminder that nothing was wasted, that leftovers could be transformed into something comforting and new. To taste it again is to hear the morning radio in the background, to smell butter melting on the stove, and to feel the steady rhythm of a home that valued care in every detail. Sloppy Joes. Ground beef simmered with ketchup, onions, and a dash of tangy sauce until it thickened into a fragrant mixture. Spooned onto soft buns, it oozed and dripped with every bite, messy in the most delightful way. Children laughed as sauce smeared their fingers, while parents smiled at the sight of plates quickly emptied. Sloppy Joes were the joy of imperfection, proof that food did not need to be neat to be loved. They were quick to make, filling, and always welcomed with cheer. In the kitchens of the 1950s, this dish was the answer to busy nights. It was practical yet fun, thrift meeting delight. To prepare Sloppy Joes today is to bring back the sound of children's laughter echoing through the kitchen, the memory of meals that asked for nothing but enjoyment. Beef and bean burritos. Warm tortillas lay ready as seasoned ground beef and creamy beans were spooned inside. Rolled tightly, they held together flavors that were rich, hearty, and comforting. A sprinkle of cheese or a spoonful of salsa made each burrito feel personal, adaptable to the taste of whoever sat at the table. In the 1950s, burritos carried the excitement of flavors that felt new yet familiar. They reflected the growing influence of Mexican-American neighbors, a gentle broadening of horizons without leaving home. To eat them now is to remember nights when dinner felt adventurous, when spices and textures offered something different, but still warm and satisfying. Burritos were not only meals, they were stories of cultures mingling on the American table. Jell-O salad. The dish shimmered under the dining room light, a wobbly jewel of bright colors. Inside the layers floated fruit, marshmallows, or even bits of vegetables suspended in playful surprise. Children's eyes lit up at its sparkle, and adults admired its cheerfulness as much as its taste. Each bite was cool, sweet, and slightly whimsical. It was food that made people smile before they even tasted it. At parties, potlucks, and holiday dinners, Jell-O salad became both centerpiece and conversation starter. For families of the 1950s, Jell-O salad was joy served on a plate. It was simple to make, easy to share, and impossible to forget. To serve it again today is to bring back the laughter of gatherings, the sound of clinking glasses, and the memory of food that was as much fun as it was nourishment. Banana cream pie. A buttery crust held a smooth custard layered with slices of ripe bananas, crowned with whipped cream as soft as clouds. The pie gleamed on the table, a dessert that promised sweetness before the knife even touched it. The first slice revealed custard glistening against golden crust, bananas adding freshness to every bite. The cream melted gently on the tongue, leaving behind the taste of comfort and delight. Families leaned forward eagerly, knowing that this was more than dessert, it was celebration. In the 1950s, banana cream pie was the finale of gatherings both large and small. It was indulgence made approachable, a little luxury that every home could enjoy. To bake it now is to recall the glow of evening lamps, the hush that fell when dessert was served, and the sweetness of memories that lingered long after plates were cleared. As we look back on these 25 forgotten meals, we find more than recipes. We find rituals of togetherness, sounds of silverware clinking against china, and the glow of kitchens where thrift and love met each evening. The meals of the 1950s carried simplicity, but within that simplicity lived abundance. Every dish, from meatloaf to banana cream pie, was a reminder that food could nourish both body and soul. They were steady companions in uncertain times, joyful touches on ordinary nights, and memories that still linger in the taste of comfort food today. To revisit them now is to step once more into kitchens polished with care, into evenings softened by laughter, and into the timeless truth that the heart of a home is found at the table.